We need to talk about Starfox. My initial reaction to the Nintendo Direct, I was so excited for these new designs. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about my thoughts on the new game, the future of the Starfox franchise, and why I think these new designs are genius. As someone who grew up with Star Fox 64, I understand the nostalgia and the love of these old designs. I truly believe these new designs are going to elevate the Star Fox characters and series into a new era, and let me tell you why. One of the reasons these designs stood out to me instantly during the Direct was that to me it evoked a similar feeling of Jim Henson's Dark Crystal, or Jim Henson's Labyrinth, a sort of lost style as certain animation styles have become popular over the years, inspired by The Lion King and a lot of these early kind of representations of animalistic characters. But for that reason, this new look really stands out, and there's a real tangibility to these characters, this sort of texture. There's a haptic feel where you can imagine the material of their coat, for example. There's that slight oddness to it, and the anatomy is also a lot more tangible and a lot more understandable, and it's going to allow the characters to express themselves much richer ways for these new cutscenes, which seem to be using motion capture. It's going to allow sort of real performances to come through just beyond the voice with these characters in their new anatomy and the way they can move their bodies. I want to use the music as an example here. Look at how they've taken the music from the N64, this beautiful, charming sound font from the N64 that we all love, and now it's elevated with a full orchestra. You can hear every performer, every instrument perfectly balanced and just singing with intensity, and it has that Star Wars John Williams feel. That's the elevation that this soundtrack deserves. That's how Koji Kondo no doubt envisioned it when he was composing it, if he could have a full orchestra, if the hardware didn't limit that, or the budget. And now, same thing for the characters, right? I want to elevate the story. I want to elevate the characterization and the tangibility of the story and the believability of it and the groundedness. I want to be fully immersed in the music, in the characters, in the story, and that cute, very cartoony, very charming look, I feel is going to hold it back a little bit. So this visceral new design that they have for the characters, again, this kind of Dark Crystal feeling, this is what I'm talking about. This is going to immerse me in this war, because it's a war. You know, I want to remind you guys, it's not just like a fun party. We're all hanging out and stuff. Again, that's why I think like Wolf and Cat's new designs are appropriate. It's a war, man. There's not a bunch of people hanging out, having a tea party. I want to use that as a sort of comparison here. Like, think about the soundtrack and how it's been elevated. I think the characters, the designs, and the ability to perform as actors, I think they deserve to also be elevated to this design, which is more realistic and allows for that depth of performance now. So I can't wait. Now, another thing to note is that these styles, even as far up to Super Smash Brothers, like the really cool styles that Fox, Falco, and Wolf have, and some of those later, most recent iterations, are very much tethered to the original sort of N64 designs that they had, which is a limitation of the time period, hence that polygonal look. And if you'll notice, even on the Super Smash Bros. Models, they kind of still have that mesh of the N64 polygons, which has limited them to this very geometric face, which obviously, again, very nostalgic to me, grew up with it, so I understand completely people who feel that way. But it is a bit limited, even in the way they can sort of move their body, hinge their necks and their upper body and their face, and of course, express themselves. It's extremely limited in this highly stylized version of an animalistic character that is tied to that N64 aesthetic. And speaking of aesthetic, we also had the Super Mario Galaxy movie with the amazing cameo of Fox McCloud, and yet another new look for him, which of course is tied to the aesthetic of those Mario movies, which already had their own version and kind of art style and stylization of Mario, Peach, and everyone. They look actually quite different from the games, much like how Fox looks kind of similar to his Smash Bros. Version, but is a lot more sort of like Western cartoon version in the Mario Galaxy movie. So I want to remind you guys of sort of the real mood and I think the real intention of the Star Fox series. Again, limited by the aesthetic of the technological limitations of the N64, that game was trying to achieve a very Star Wars feel, a very sci-fi feel. And if you look at the actual themes of the game and the content of the story, it is a war. It is a war for the galaxy, for the Lilat system, and, you know, taking down Andros. And it's actually quite an intense story, and it's quite dark. I personally don't believe this aesthetic of the kind of very, very fun, kind of like cuddly, animalistic look really lends itself to that style. I don't feel it lends itself to that style as well. So I think this new look, like I said, really lends itself to that storytelling. You have to look at it just beyond the aesthetics. You know, what looks cute, what looks cool, what does the story call for? So in this case, I think it elevates the story immensely to reach those heights. And again, you have, even in the trailer, even you see a little preview in the direct of Fox kind of yelling at General Pepper, kind of arguing with him. And it made me realize, yeah, this is going to be a lot more intense of a story, and there's going to be actual performances in this. It's not just going to be kind of like tongue-in-cheek, yeah, we're having fun, like the Mario Galaxy movie. Perfect for what that movie called for, right? Obviously, it's a movie scaled for a little bit younger people. It's not going to have this crazy, like, political war in the Lilat system. It's going to have Fox being awesome, looking cool. But in this, it doesn't just call for that. It calls for this sort of conflict between characters. And this aesthetic, and those little previews made me so excited for those scenes to come, as they've confirmed new writing, new scenes, new characterization for these characters. Also, look at Wolf. He looks like he's battle hardened, man. He looks like he's seen so much. Someone you don't want to take lightly on the battlefield, like a real, you know, villain for Fox to come up against in the story. And even Kat, like, she looks more dangerous now, as opposed to just like cute. I'm the girl in the game, so I'm cute. You know, fun for its time, but I think we can elevate the game and the characters a little bit more than that, right? So I think it's going to be awesome. And again, someone who you want on your side in a war, right? In a battle to the death. So I think it's just awesome, and it's going to make the character dynamics so much richer. Again, to hear Starwolf, like, it looks like that old Starwolf voice, like, really is going to suit this wolf very, very well. Again, as opposed to the Smash Bros, he kind of looks like yeah, I'm a bad guy. This is like, oh man, we're getting a little dynamics to the character. We're getting a little layered. It's like he looks cold, he looks calculated, he looks calm. Someone who you are to fear in a fight. When he shows up and says, I can't let you do that, starfox, it's gonna be just, chills inducing. It's gonna be awesome. And we've heard the Starwolf theme on Nintendo Music. It's just absolutely exceptional. Again, I think they did a fantastic job with them on the N64. I was recently showing my wife, again, one of my favorite games, Star Fox 64 on the, that's one of the things I noted after revisiting the game after a good few years. It's actually a really rich story, and it's really ambitious with the multiple pathways through the galaxy, and everything is really something. So I'm so happy that they're elevating that even further, just cranking up the intensity. Again, with this sort of Jim Henson, you know, really kind of visceral feeling to the characters, and, you know, taking the anatomy and just making it a little more real. Even a lot of people have talked about the legs, right? I think it's great. You know, he's supposed to be a fox. Let's have him look like a fox, and to kind of take that and crank it up into the odd a little bit, into the weirdness of those designs, and again, kind of the eeriness of those designs a little bit, right? If you had animals who were like piloting, like, you know, starships and destroying each other in the galaxy with weapons of war and everything. It's a pretty weird story, and there's definitely an eeriness to it. So I like that it looks kind of strange. And the tangibility, I'm telling you, the sort of haptic feeling, the tangibility of it is going to be fantastic. You look at these old designs, for example, the Smash Bros one here. These characters are sort of almost iconic in their design. And let me explain. They're almost having one expression that's baked into the character model. So like, that's what they're supposed to be. That's the expression. We don't really have to animate, because like Fox, he looks confident. He looks a little cocky. He looks like he's got the mission under control, right? He just has that, yeah, little bit of a smirk. Falco, again, he looks super cocky. He looks like he's going to be a good rival for Star Fox, you know? Looks like he's got him under control, maybe a little arrogant, right, in the look. But there's not really any room for expression in these designs. So I do want to point that out. I'm one of the biggest Smash Bros fans, trust me. But this, I love what they've done with it, because now we're going to get super sort of depth to the performance, as opposed to, you know, the voice really only carrying it, which would mean in the voice acting you might have to crank it up just a little bit more, which is again going to take it into a different genre of sort of exaggeration and big grandness, which can be fantastic. Don't get me wrong, I love it. But yeah, this is a war. This is a space war, right? I want to see the kind of minutia of the performance, and I think we're going to be able to achieve that with these fantastic new designs. And then another really cool tidbit is Takaya Imamura, who's the original designer of Star Fox and Majora's Mask, just an absolute legend in the industry and in Nintendo, and a lot of Nintendo projects. He said these are the exact designs that he imagined, that he had in his head when he was imagining Star Fox 64. So how cool is it that we get to see kind of his full vision, not limited by technology, in this current generation. So anyways, and again, just looking at these designs, now comparing, just looking at the Smash Bros ones, see what I mean? Look at the expression. Look at the sort of verisimilitude of it, or you can kind of like see the little micro expressions and the way they move. And look at the coat even. The coat is more believable. You can start to kind of imagine the material. And look at Falco's feathers and stuff. They look like feathers, you know, it's not just kind of like a slick back hairstyle. There's an eeriness to it. There's a grittiness to it, actually, that I love. And when you look at this game, again, look at the lighting. Look at the sort of intensity of the scene and the fact that they're battling for their lives and everything. The little bit of moisture, you know, on Slippy and everything. It makes it more believable. It makes it more kind of easy to sink your teeth into and kind of, you know, get into the story. So I think it's a fantastic thing. And I would say I really encourage you to, you know, to see it from this perspective if you're still hung up on it. And again, the nostalgia is fantastic. Like I said, I grew up with Star Fox 64 playing it every day as a kid and doing runs and trying different routes. But I really think this is going to be for those scenes. You know, look at the sort of these shots again. Look at the darkness in the frame, right? Look at the sort of almost like fear that could evoke in the frame, and look at the almost uncertainty on Fox's face that you can see. I almost said Cloud from Final Fantasy, Fox McCloud. But you can see here, you know, there's a little bit of doubt, a little bit of fear. It's a fear-inducing image in outer space like that, and you know those highly stylized kind of cute cartoon looks, I don't think are really going to lend themselves to this scene. You know, it's fine for Smash Bros. It's fine for the Mario Galaxy movie. It's great because it's fun, it's light. They're not trying to evoke those kind of scary emotions. But in this, man, right? Look at the coloration. Look at the color grading, right? This is all lending itself. And even the R-Wing, right? Notice the design is really, I mean, brought up from the N64 model, right? Which is just kind of like, this was all just this cream white color here. And this was very simplified. You can see in the mechanics of the design that same understanding that elevates it. Okay, I can actually see how this, like, each mechanism works and moves. And the R-Wing, you know, these little lights go off and they open up almost like an X-Wing from Star Wars. Like, do you see what I mean? It's a lot more. So to elevate the designs of the characters, I think is just absolutely necessary if you're going to do that much detail, or leave the whole thing very light, very fun, and a simplified R-Wing design, and let's not unpack the story as much. But since we're going deep into the story and the characterizations and the sort of mechanism and engineering of it, yes. And another thing I want to note is, of course, if you're like me and you're an insane fan, you've been listening on Nintendo Music for days now, the Star Fox Orchestra sort of preview they gave for this game. One of the most exciting parts for me as a fan. I love music, and to hear these songs elevated to how they would have sounded when we were kids, in the brass, in the strings, in the woodwinds. That's what I'm saying for the designs, guys. We want that same energy for the designs. We want it to be how we pictured it as kids. What if it was more real? What if we were really in those space battles? You know, what if the lighting was more intense? And we have that now. So yeah, that's what I was encouraging you to think, is think about it like the soundtrack. That elevation that we're all going to get to enjoy now. And like I said, I mean, even the gameplay itself and the sort of new modes on multiplayer and everything are going to be so amazing. And game share, again, if you don't know what game share is or haven't used it much yet, totally understandable. If you don't have really like anyone to use like a multiple game share setup with on a specific game, totally makes sense. But Just to explain quickly, like game share is insane what Nintendo is doing. No one's moving like Nintendo right now. I was playing Tears of the Kingdom, what is it? Hyrule Warriors with my wife. She didn't even have a Nintendo Switch 2, and we were playing Pokopia. We have one Nintendo Switch 2 and a Nintendo Switch 1. She was able to play Pokopia with me on her Switch 1. She doesn't have a Switch 2 or Pokopia. You see what I mean? Like, it's crazy. And you can do this with like 4 players, none of which have a Switch 2, or 3 other players who don't have a Switch 2 can play Switch 2 on their own machine. It's crazy. Nobody's moving like that. So anyways, just a small sidetrack why I'm excited for this game and the Switch 2 in general. I really want to hear from you guys as well. What are your thoughts on this? Because for me, again, I think the aesthetic is really, really, even the more I sat with it, after being initially super excited, because I just thought, oh, it's Dark Crystal, it's Jim Henson. I get exactly what they're going for here. I got even more excited. Again, look at these shots, right? Look at the intensity, look at the fire looking so real. And this is what I'm talking about. Look at Fox kind of arguing and yelling at General Pepper, get us out of here, you know, whatever. I don't know what he's saying, but like for that intensity, man. And look at the lighting on his face and everything, and how it's casting off very believably and very realistically. Yeah, if you have those old N64 kind of mesh heads, just with like more realistic fur on top of the simple polygons, there's not enough movement of the body, and like even the way his shoulders hinging and stuff, it's not gonna look as believable. And I think it is going to break the immersion if they were to look in that old style. Again, I love the old styles, but just my thoughts. I want to be honest, I bet there's even more they haven't announced for this game. Nintendo loves to do multiple directs in some cases for their games, so yeah, stay tuned. I'm going to be diving deep into this. I'll probably be streaming it as well, either with my wife Aaliyah or alone once it drops, because I love Star Fox 64. I'm so excited. And I do think, to conclude, that yes, these styles are setting up Star Fox to actually come back fully. I think this game is going to be the comeback, and we're going to get like a sequel to Star Fox 64, like a proper one in the same style, you know, whether it's a rail shooter or not. But with these designs, I really think it's going to carry it into the next sort of generation. It's going to continue on. And I expect Nintendo to do that with all of their stuff. If you notice, like Donkey Kong, he's got a new look. He's got a 10 out of 10 game that came out. If you haven't played it, Bonanza, and he's gonna carry into new games. Star Fox doing the same thing. You know, Kirby just came out. Like, they're really doing that. Of course, it's gonna be a new Zelda eventually, right? And then, I mean, come on, I can't be the only one who's so excited to see all these new designs in the next Smash Bros, which is probably gonna get revealed sometime soon. You never know. Maybe it's too much hope, but so anyways, that's my thoughts on this. I want to hear from you as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, but I noticed almost nobody was thinking about it like this, and I really wanted to share my thoughts on that kind of like Jim Henson, Dark Crystal kind of, you know, roughness to it and kind of eeriness to it, where it's still kind of like charm. There's a lot of charm here, but there's also a kind of eeriness and almost like, you know, it's very fascinating, unique art style. And I do think in this day and age where a lot of stuff looks similar, give me something fresh and different and original, right? I think that's the coolest thing for them to go in this direction. And then somebody had actually edited like Mario, Link, and Peach, and Splatoon, and everything, and they put this new design of Fox like kind of next to them. It looks so good. It looks right in place. Again, that kind of sort of brought up to pace. Because yeah, it really was just kind of the N64 design with like realistic fur on top, and I think it was holding it back just a little bit. So yeah, it would be like if, again, I love Ocarina of Time, don't get me started, but it would be like taking not the drawings of Ocarina of Time, not the designs, but the in-game models, and then kind of taking them and just making the textures more realistic, but being the same mesh, right? It would look a little bit limited and a little bit less expressive than Breath of the Wild with like more polygons and stuff. So that's an interesting comparison to make. But yes, and a lot of people have also said, of course, the original kind of dolls that they made of Star Fox back for the Super Nintendo, which is definitely being evoked here too. So I think it's taking all of that and elevating it further. That's my thoughts on it. Let me know if you agree, if you disagree. I'd love to have some discussion in the comments. Make sure to subscribe if you're new. I am going to be covering this game a lot more as it comes out, and even before it comes out if there's new news. And make sure to check out my other videos where I do cinematic breakdowns of games like Final Fantasy, Zelda, other Nintendo, and Square Enix product, all kinds of games. And also check out my voice acting on my Instagram and my other YouTube. Thanks for being here.